On the night of June 19, 2008, two men were shot dead in the parking lot of a Christian music recording studio in Garland, Texas. The victims were Matthew Butler, 28, the owner of the studio and a father of two, and his employee Stephen Swan, 26. They were robbed and killed for $2. Just $2. The man convicted of pulling the trigger was a 19-year-old named James Garfield Broadnax. After his arrest, he sat down for a Jailhouse interview on live television and told the reporter, "I pulled the trigger." When asked what he would say to the families of the men he had killed, he said, "Fuck him."
You're 19?
Yup.
Okay, tell me why you agreed to do an interview today.
Cause I want to tell my story.
What is your story?
I don't want nobody, you know what I'm saying, sugarcoat shit. I'm gonna tell y'all what it is, you know what I'm saying? Straight up.
Okay.
I don't need my cousin, my auntie, and none of them motherfuckers to tell shit for me.
What do you want to say?
What y'all want to know?
Tell me what happened
Y'all
in the parking lot of that recording studio.
What happened?
What happened?
Killed that bitch ass.
Why?
All them going to ask me the same thing. Or you want me to just tell you the whole story?
Yes.
Alright. See, what happened was, you know what I'm saying, got up. See, I ain't just wake up, you know what I'm saying, playing like, I'm finna go kill somebody today, or, you know, no shit like that, you know what I'm saying? It just happened like that, sort of kind of, you know what I'm saying? So shit, just like a normal day, got up, smoked my weed, you know what I'm saying? I did a couple of bitches or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Me and my cousin, we hopped on the bus, you know what I'm saying?
On April 30th, 2026, 18 years later, the state of Texas executed him. But in the months before that execution, his cousin, the other man present that night, came forward in a sworn statement from prison and said, "I was the one who shot the two victims, not James." This is the full story of what happened that night, who the victims were, and one of the most publicly debated executions Texas has carried out in recent years. James Garfield Broadnax has just been executed for the crime he committed in 2008, when he was 19 years old. The robbery and fatal shooting of two men outside a Christian recording studio in Garland, Texas on the night of June 19, 2008. Before that night, Broadnax had no criminal record. He was working as a kitchen worker at the time of the crime. But the life that led him to that parking lot in Garland had been one of deep instability from the very beginning. Broadnax grew up in Texarkana, Texas, in what court documents describe as a crack-infested housing project. His father was not part of his life. In fact, Broadnax only recently learned his father's identity. His mother, Audrey, struggled with severe substance abuse and a series of volatile relationships. The family survived on food stamps. The electricity was routinely shut off. Family, friends, and relatives who testified at his trial said Broadnax was always hungry, never smiled, and often came to school with visible injuries. He was smoking marijuana by the time he was 9 years old. He was repeatedly sent to live with his grandmother in Arkansas. Court documents say his grandmother resented him for being the only biracial child in an otherwise black family. On one occasion, a neighbor reported that Broadnax had been locked out of the house for hours in summer heat. His stepfather once reported that it appeared he hadn't bathed in weeks, when a dead roach was found in his ear. By the end of his teenage years, Broadnax had lived in a dozen different places and attended 5 different schools. He dropped out after the 11th grade. He later enrolled in GED classes, walking 4 to 5 miles each way to attend them. On the night of June 19, 2008, he was 19 years old, high on PCP and marijuana, and boarding a train with his cousin. He had no prior criminal record. He had no plan for his future. And the decision he made that night would seal it. On the night of June 19, 2008, James Broadnax and his cousin Demarius Cummings, both 19, both high on PCP and marijuana, boarded the DART train from Dallas to Garland. In a jailhouse interview after his arrest, Broadnax described what they had set out to do that night in plain terms. He said they were planning to rob somebody. He said they were targeting what he called rich white folks.
I decided to go hit a lick, you know what I'm saying? And one of the best spots is Garland, because that's where all the rich white folks stay at, you know what I'm saying? So got caught him slipping, she and popped his that's what it is.
They got off that train and walked towards Zion Gate Records, Matthew Butler's Christian recording studio in Garland, Texas. Matthew Butler and his employee Stephen Swan were outside in the parking lot when Broadnax and Cummings approached them. The two men were robbed at gunpoint and then shot dead. 2 men were dead at the parking lot. A gun. And $2. That is all Broadnax and Cummings walked away with from the robbery. They also took Stephen Swan's 1995 Ford Crown Victoria. At around 1:20 a.m. a passing bicyclist found Butler and Swan lifeless body. Both had been shot several times on the sidewalk in front of the Zion Gate recording studio, a music business specializing in contemporary Christian music that Butler opened in 2005 and where his friend Swan worked as an engineer. Broadnax and Cummings were arrested shortly after the murders, caught 170 miles from the crime scene. As noted, Broadnax confessed to the shootings in televised Jailhouse interviews, telling reporters directly that he had pulled the trigger and expressing no remorse.
Blank you know what I'm saying, and shot him, like stumbled back, shot the driver, he hit the ground, you know what I'm saying, but he like leaned up like he was finna try to get back up, so I shot him in the head. Then his homeboy, I shot his again, you know what I'm saying, but he was still trying to run off, but I knew he was gonna die anyway, but just to make sure, pop, shot his like, you know what I'm saying, twice in the head or whatever. Me and my kinfolks ran their pockets, you know what I'm saying, he jumped in the driver's seat, I jumped on past the side, and we dipped out.
How much money did you guys get?
No, he had $2 in his wallet, you know what I'm saying.
I don't want life.
You don't want life?
Pick one. If they don't, I will.
How do you feel today, Mr. Cummings?
I feel real bad. You know, I feel that was wrong what we did, you know. I know how their family feel about it, you know what I'm saying?
So how do you feel now?
You know what I'm saying? I kind of regret what I did, but shit can't change. I know you was crying though.
What do you want them to know about you?
I want them to know I didn't kill nobody. I didn't kill her husband or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
But you do admit you contributed to it?
Yeah, I contribute to it, but I didn't kill him though.
You sorry it happened, sir?
Yes, sir.
What do you want to say to the families of the 2 men you killed?
Straight up.
In those interviews, he confessed directly. Those words would follow him all the way to the execution chamber. Matthew Butler was 28 years old when he was killed in the parking lot of his own recording studio. He was a Christian music singer and a father of 2, a girl and a boy. He had built Zion Gate Records himself, a studio dedicated to Christian music in suburban Dallas. His wife, Jamie Cole, who had been married to Matthew for 3 years at the time of the shooting, later described him as a playful man who approached life with a joke or a game, always within reach. She said they had met at church. Their days were spent having fun and singing worship songs together. Matthew had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in his teens, which made it difficult for him to hold a steady job. Music was where he found his footing, and owning the studio gave him the flexibility he needed. It was his dream, built with his own hands. He was killed in its parking lot. Stephen Swan was 26 years old. He worked for Matthew at the studio. His parents, Jean and Craig Swan, remembered their son as a brilliant young man, both an engineer and a musician. It's hard to say how good he was, his mother Jean said at the time. Both men were killed for just $2. Matthew Butler's mother, Teresa Butler, spent the 18 years that followed watching the case move through the courts and pushing for the sentence to be carried out. She was still fighting for her son all the way up to the week of Broadnax's execution. Broadnax and Cummings were both charged with capital murder. The cases were tried separately. At Broadnax's trial, prosecutors built their case around his confession, physical evidence, and eyewitness accounts. During the punishment phase of the trial, when jurors decide between life and death, prosecutors introduced more than 40 pages of handwritten rap lyrics that Broadnax had written before the crime. In Texas capital cases, juries must determine whether a defendant poses a continuing threat to society, known as future dangerousness, before imposing the death penalty. Among the lyrics read in court are: Fade M, tape M up, I hit M later, I am so high up and cloud proof. Like a skyscraper, hog tie M and body bag M, send them to the mayor, then I bomb the whole country, send the press, the paper. Another verse, reportedly written while already in jail, was presented during closing arguments. Hold up, stop and rewind a little story while I'm in this bitch, yeah. I hit the lick, I got 2 murder charges on me, I might just go to the judge and tell him I'm going to murk him, because I'm JB. They described the lyrics to the jury as gangster rap and argued they were evidence of his future dangerousness, a legal requirement under Texas law that must be established before the death penalty can be imposed. The jury requested to review the lyrics twice during their deliberations, including shortly before they voted to sentence Broadnax to death. Broadnax was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death in 2009 at 20 years old. Demarius Cummings, tried separately, was also convicted of capital murder. The Dallas County District Attorney's Office did not seek the death penalty for Cummings. He was sentenced to life without parole. 2 men. Same crime. Same night. One facing death. One serving life. That disparity would become a central point of dispute in everything that followed. James Broadnax was sent to the Allen B. Polunsky Unit in Livingston, Texas death row, in 2009. He was 20 years old. He would spend the next 17 years there. Right after his arrest, before the trial even began, Broadnax had been placed on suicide watch and diagnosed as suffering from severe psychological distress. He had told people at the time that he didn't care if he lived or died, that his past had been so painful he had no desire to find out if the future held more of the same.
I don't want life.
You don't want life?
Pick one. If they don't, I will.
His lawyers would later argue that this state of mind explained both his actions that night and his willingness to confess so openly on television. But the man who went into that prison at 20 years old was not the same man who sat on death row 17 years later. Over the course of his time at Polunsky, Broadnax found Christian faith and dedicated himself to self-improvement. He was selected for a competitive faith-based rehabilitation program inside the unit, reserved only for inmates with a sustained record of good behavior and demonstrated commitment to change. Within that program, he taught classes on conflict resolution and spirituality. He worked to mediate tensions between inmates and prison staff. A fellow inmate in his unit was quoted as saying that if it came down to one of them receiving clemency, he would pick Broadnax every time. And then, in the final weeks of his life, something remarkable happened. While researching American death penalty cases at the Polunsky unit, a UK-based law school graduate named Tiana Krosnichi came to learn about James Broadnax and his case. Over time, what began as research became something deeper. The two began corresponding. A relationship developed, one built entirely through letters, phone calls, and visits separated by a clear panel of glass. Tiana later said, "It was never the intention to be in a relationship with somebody on death row. Our wedding keeps being pushed. It's not easy to get married to somebody in a Texas criminal justice system. But we're hoping to get married. It has been a lot of working hard to ensure that James gets his justice really in a way in terms of obviously with the new discovery that's incredible because I've always believed in James. But she believed in him. She believed in his innocence. And she believed in who he had become. Getting married inside the Texas criminal justice system is not a straightforward process. The paperwork, the approvals, the logistics of arranging a ceremony inside a maximum security prison. Tiana described it as months of working hard just to make it happen. The wedding kept being pushed back. On April 14, 2026, just 16 days before his scheduled execution, James Garfield Broadnax and Tiana Krasniqi were married at the Allen B. Polunsky unit in Livingston, Texas. They exchanged vows separated by a clear panel of glass. She became his wife. He became her husband. 16 days before the state of Texas was scheduled to take his life. Meanwhile, his legal team was making its final moves. In March 2026, Demarius Cummings, still serving his life sentence, signed a sworn statement and recorded a video confession from prison, stating that he, not Broadnax, had been the shooter that night.
My name is Demarius Cummings. Well, I know James is my cousin, my blood cousin. I've been incarcerated going on 18 years now. Well, in June it'll be 18 years. I've had time to think about my life, and most of it had to do with my cousin and me. So, a lot of times I thought about it, and it just wasn't never sitting right with me. You know, we was in this crime together, but he's on the other side of things that I should have been. With him getting a death penalty, that should have been me. So I feel like this is an outlet to get it out to whoever gonna listen, as far as who y'all dealing with, to tell the story as it should be told. That it was me, that I was the killer. And bro just stood in my place. Cause at being young, as I knew things, I didn't know nothing, but I told bro to do what he did. And so, in my ignorance, it got him the death penalty. And even now it's hurting me because like I say, it's been weighing on me. It's just been weighing on me, and I just think I need to get it out. Because it's destroying me. Even at this point, I'm under behavior management. But for me, I'm not trying to convince them. I'm just telling them like it is. This is what happened. Now, y'all choose to accept it or not. It's on y'all,
Cummings said he had persuaded Broadnax to take the blame at the time of their arrest because Broadnax had no prior criminal record. He said he came forward after learning that his cousin was scheduled to die. Broadnax's attorneys took that confession to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals in March 2026. The court rejected the appeal on April 7th, ruling that his lawyers should have raised the issue in an earlier appeal. The attorneys then filed with the U.S. Supreme Court, also arguing that DNA evidence supported Cummings' confession. Only Cummings' DNA had been found on the murder weapon and in the pocket of one of the victims, not Broadnax's. The case attracted national attention. Rappers like Travis Scott, T.I., Killer Mike, Young Thug, and Fat Joe filed legal briefs at the Supreme Court supporting Broadnax's appeal against the use of his rap lyrics as evidence, arguing that artistic expression should not be treated as proof of criminal intent or future dangerousness. Legal scholars and civil rights organizations also joined in. On April 27, 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court denied 2 of Broadnax's appeals without comment. On April 29th, all 7 members of the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles voted against both a commutation of his sentence and a 180-day reprieve. Teresa Butler, Matthew Butler's mother, responded to Cummings' confession directly. saying the so-called confession from Cummings is just a stall tactic by Broadnax's desperate defense team, saying it's all a lie. On the morning of April 30th, 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court denied Broadnax's final appeal. The execution would proceed. Broadnax had also recorded a video statement in the weeks before his death in which he said his original confession had been false, that he had not cared about his life at the time, and that he had confessed to protect his cousin. He apologized to the families of Butler and Swan for his role in the robbery. "I wish I could show them my soul, so they could see just how sorry I am," he said. "I am very much remorseful for everything that happened." His last meal is not reported. On the evening of April 30th, 2026, Broadnax was transported to the execution chamber at the state penitentiary in Huntsville, Texas. The execution took place at the state penitentiary in Huntsville, Texas on the evening of April 30th, 2026. 7 relatives of the victims were present in the witness room, including the parents of both Matthew Butler and Stephen Swan. Broadnax's wife Tiana was also among the witnesses. When asked by the warden if he had a final statement, Broadnax spoke directly to the victims' families first. He said, "To the family, I prayed for years that any of my choices would create heaviness in your heart and burdens on your spirits. I prayed to God for your forgiveness. Despite what you think about me, I hope to God that prayer was answered. But no matter what you think about me, Texas got it wrong. I'm innocent. The facts of my case should speak for itself. Period. Let this moment be what finally sparks the revolution that will be televised. None of it was worth it. Queen Emmett, I love you. My promise still stands. I always will." As the lethal injection got underway, his wife Tiana screamed, "I love you," from the witness room. Broadnax did not respond. James Garfield Broadnax was pronounced dead at 6:47 p.m. on April 30th, 2026. He was 37 years old. He was the 3rd person executed in Texas in 2026. After the execution, Broadnax's legal team released a statement maintaining that the state of Texas had executed an innocent man, a man who had not fired the gun that killed Matthew Butler and Stephen Swan. They described him as someone who had profoundly transformed himself during 17 years on death row, and expressed regret that no court had given the new evidence from Cummings a full and proper hearing. The next scheduled execution in Texas is that of Edward Busby on May 14, 2026, convicted of the 2004 murder of a retired professor. James Garfield Broadnax was 19 years old the night it happened. He was 37 years old when the state of Texas executed him, 18 years later, still maintaining he was not the shooter. His wife of 16 days watched him die through the glass of a witness room. Whether he pulled the trigger or not is a question the courts, across 18 years and multiple levels of appeal, consistently answered the same way. His cousin, sitting in prison serving life, says those courts got it wrong. The families of Matthew Butler and Stephen Swan say they did not. Whether this execution represents justice, and what kind of justice it is something I will have to hear from you in the comments below. If this story is one you feel deserves to be heard, share it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And subscribe for more stories told the way they deserve to be told. If you're a lover of creepy true crime stories, true crime documentaries, horror crime, unsolved mysteries and the rest, you can do well to check out our twin channel Mysterious Dark Files for more videos like that.